that is very reassuring to the public who thought he was perhaps an ogre or anti-woman or didn't like kids or some.
Well, you know what's interesting about Laura Ingraham saying he couldn't possibly have done any better. Every poll says it was a tie. So I guess the absolute best that J.D. Vance has in him, and it impressed Laura Ingraham, was to do about as well as Tim Walz.
In this one, we're going to have a look at David Pakman giving his version of a good faith effort attempt in breaking down Fox News' coverage of the vice presidential debate we saw last week between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. Now let's check it out.
When all you have is a hammer, what's that phrase I like? Everything looks like a nail. Fox News anchors, reporters, and analysts last night after the vice presidential debate swarmed to those damn CBS moderators were so biased. They did everything that made JD look bad and Tim Walz look good. This is all they have. This is the only tool they have. Here's Brett Baer and Martha McCallum and Britt Hume weighing in on the moderation, which was so unremarkable that it's just there's really nothing to even talk about. When I think about the VP debate, how did Walz do? How did Vance do? Okay, there was one time where the mics were cut when J.D. Vance wouldn't stop going multiple minutes over his time. Other than that, I don't remember anything the moderators did. Like referees in a game, if they're doing a good job, you just don't really notice them very much. We didn't really notice the moderators. Fox News doesn't like it. And something tells me that what this is really about is Fox News is angry that they're not getting a debate.
For the Tiananmen.
Couple things real quick. The reason why these moderators were more in line with the typical position that a moderator is supposed to play during a debate is because their first attempt to fact check J.D. Vance, he called him out. He basically straight up said, look, we agreed that you guys aren't going to fact check, so let's stick with that, right? I mean, so to speak. He didn't quote say it like that. And to what David Pakman just said there about Fox News being mad that they're not getting a debate, they absolutely should get a debate. They already did 3 on Democrat-loving, mainstream media, lefty propaganda channels. Why not do 1 on Fox News? You know, and that's aside from the fact that Donald Trump has already done 2 presidential debates, one with Biden where he destroyed him, and the second one with Kamala, that some people say Trump won, some people say Kamala won. In my opinion, Trump won, but the mainstream media is only going to focus on the things that they think Kamala did well. But anyways, that's beside the point. And the second thing is David Pakman is trying to act like Fox News isn't a credible news source that deserves having a debate on their channel. Donald Trump did 2 presidential debates, one against Biden where he completely destroyed Biden to the point where now he's not even the candidate, and the second one against Kamala Harris where the moderators were basically fighting Kamala Harris's fight for her. They kept fact-checking Donald Trump. They let her get away with saying lie after lie, and that led to, you know, a lot of people, a lot of pundits believing that Kamala Harris won the debate. And so after Trump being treated like that, you know, first of all, he doesn't have to do a 3rd debate. But if there was a 3rd debate, it should certainly be on Fox News. A channel that's going to be a little bit more partial to Donald Trump and impartial to Kamala Harris, just for the sake of fairness and equality and, you know, all the things that the Democrats love to cry about, right? So anyways, back to the video.
Square protest when he was actually really in Nebraska. He said sometimes he just says things and he's a knucklehead talking about things. Again, no questions about China, no questions about Ukraine. And there was some, questions about fact-checking and whether it was fair and balanced across the way. Here with us tonight, Dana Perino, Harold Ford Jr., Laura Ingraham, Jesse Waters, Britt Hume joins us remotely. Britt, your thoughts coming out of this debate?
Well, the moderators were obnoxious and made it feel like 3-on-1 on Vance. And Vance...
It's always 3-on-1. That's their talking point they have.
...was just fine. He seems to have been, his skills as a debater and a speaker seem to have been honed to some extent by just these several months on the campaign trail. And for one so young, he seemed, in terms of his knowledge of policy, to run rings around poor Governor Walz, who I think did not have a very great night. As you say, Brett, he got better as the night wore on. But if you're rating this debate on points, it wasn't close.
It's so funny because listen, again, I want to make clear, I as a biased observer and as
Glad you can admit that now.
someone who's consuming this stuff daily, my view is that on substance, Tim Walz absolutely knocked it out of the park. If you look at on abortion, did you hear the things J.D. Vance said? And comparatively, Tim Walz's empathetic but also accurate understanding of women's bodily autonomy, what works, what doesn't, and how to actually reduce unwanted pregnancy, which Minnesota has done. Oh, but on policy, Britt Hume says J.D. Vance was good. On the issue of health care, J.D. Vance twisted himself into a pretzel. Obamacare's bad, but we're going to keep the stuff Obamacare does because it's good. But Donald Trump is actually the one that saved Obamacare, except everything Donald Trump did actually was an attempt to get rid of Obamacare. Nonsense. And then in comes Tim Walz and explains, okay, listen, here's the deal. The reason you need an individual mandate is otherwise you get adverse selection. And that doesn't make the risk pool work. You need the risk pool to be diverse. This is just the fundamentals about insurance. It's just math. It's actuarial. It's statistical. It's not about Democrats or Republicans. So Britt Hume is talking about how on policy, J.D. Vance was running circles around Tim Walz. I didn't see that at all. But they need to do anything they can to extract advantage from this. And they're not going to be able to because the audience saw it as basically a tie debate that won't move the needle one way or the other. Then they go to Laura Ingraham last night. And Laura Ingraham, again, talks about it was just unbelievable. It was unbelievable what J.D. Vance was able to do.
Those who question Trump's choice of Vance as his vice presidential running mate, I think those doubts should have been put to rest tonight. I don't think, and this is my 8th presidential campaign I think I covered, I don't think I've ever seen a Republican so deftly maneuver what was smug and arrogant bias on the part of those moderators. Almost every question was designed to make Republicans look bad, slanting Trump's views on child care. And yet Vance seemed to take it all in stride. And he really, I think with most questions, really showed his humanity and also his knowledge of the issues. I don't think he could have done better under the circumstances, and I think that is very reassuring to the public who thought he was perhaps an ogre or anti-woman or didn't like kids or some...
Well, you know what's interesting about Laura Ingraham saying he couldn't possibly have done any better. Every poll says it was a tie, so I guess the absolute best that J.D. Vance has in him, and it impressed Laura Ingraham, was to do about as well as Tim Walz. So what's the takeaway? The takeaway is that according to these Republicans, they never lose debates. They get screwed by the moderators, sure. They get screwed by the camera angles. They get screwed by the mics or the timers or the rules or the questions are designed to make them look bad. It's everything other than J.D. Vance was just sort of okay. He lied articulately, and it didn't really impress too many people. And the takeaway is it's probably not going to do much one way or the other for the Trump-Vance campaign. So Fox News, as usual, deploying the hammer they have and turning everything into a nail. It's all unfair. Were it not for the questions, the microphones, the positioning on the stage, the moderators, the fact-checking, were it not for those things, J.D. Vance's obvious domination of Tim Walz would have been noticeable. The American people don't seem to have fallen for it if you look at the instant results of post-debate polling. And that's a good thing that it didn't work.
Really, dude? Every poll said it was a tie? Did you watch the debate? Tim Walz looked like a bug in headlights. I didn't want to insult a deer by saying a deer in headlights. He looked like a bug in the headlights, man. Like, seriously. He did get a little bit better as time went on, but that's not saying much considering how bad he started. J.D. Vance was cool, calm, collected. I agree with Laura Ingraham that it was one of the best debate performances that I had maybe ever seen, and I don't believe that he lied about anything. If anybody was lying, it was Tim Walz. But you know what, David Pakman? Show me these polls. You have the opportunity right now when you make a claim to throw at least one poll on the screen, and you choose not to because it's very easy to say all the polls said that it was a tie. Well, here, let me do the same thing. All the polls said, and everybody that watched who has eyeballs and ears said that J.D. Vance completely obliterated Tim Walz in that debate. Which, what I said is actually more true than what David Pakman is saying. But for real, like, how does David Pakman have a following coming out here and saying blatant lies to his listeners' faces like he is? You know, it's one thing maybe having a tempting clickbait title or thumbnail to try to get people to click on your video, which is the name of the game, and I've been accused of doing from time to time. But it's another thing to just come out and straight up lie to y'all's faces and waste your time. And that's something that I do respect and appreciate, is your guys' time. And I won't lie, at least, you know, knowingly. Sometimes I'm wrong about things, but that's everybody. That's being human. And so I expect a little bit of grace when it comes to those type of things, but that's what we all should grant to each other. But David Pakman knows better. He knows for a fact that what these people on Fox News are claiming is more true than fake. With that, I just want to ask you one question. Do you think that Donald Trump should do a second debate with Kamala Harris? And if so, do you believe that it should be on Fox News, or what channel do you think that it should actually be on? America First TV would be great. But, and other than that, I'll just ask you guys that if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.